Ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, and esteemed opponents, today we stand to firmly oppose the motion this House would decriminalize victimless crime. At the first glance, the idea may sound compassionate. Why punish someone if no one is hurt? But this question hides a dangerous assumption that these crimes are truly victimless. We are here to show you that they are not. Behind every so-called victimless act, whether it's drug use, prostitution, or gambling, are silent victims, families torn apart, youth drawn into addiction, communities weakened by normalized self-destruction. Decriminalizing this action does not make society freer. It makes harm invisible, harder to prevent, and even harder to repair. As the opposition, we believe the law must remain in place not to control people's personal choices, but to protect society, especially its most vulnerable members. Let's open the motion with a story, ladies and gentlemen. What if a boy named Andy, just 17 years old, grows up in a neighborhood where drug use is common, but previously kept under control because of the law? After decriminalization, the shops near his school start selling recreational substances. It's not criminal anymore, and no one stops him. Curious and lacking for escape from family stress, he tried it. Soon, his performance in school drops. He becomes withdrawn, easily agitated, and stops attending classes. But because the act is no longer criminal, no authority steps in, no counselor, no social worker, no legal system to intervene early. His teachers can't report anything. His parents are too late to notice. His older sister, Cinta, also started working late nights. With sex work now decriminalized, she sees it advertised more openly. The pressure of paying university fees tempt her into it, not because she's empowered, but because it feels like her only option. The law is no longer views her decision as risky, so no support is offered unless she asks, something she never does out of fear of judgment. Then, let's see the background of this motion. And I'm so sorry, I would like to repeat what the government has said. The government may claim that decriminalization reduces stigma and allows better regulation and harm reduction. Removing stigma is good, but removing the law is not the right way to do it. You don't need to decriminalize something to provide support. In fact, the law often creates opportunities for court-mandated rehabilitation, protection, or intervention, things that disappear when you decriminalize. Portugal's drug decriminalization model saw increased use among youth and rise in casual users. Meanwhile, countries like Sweden keep laws intact but focus on rehabilitation over punishment and see better long-term outcomes. Regulation can happen with the law in place. Decriminalization is a blunt tool that removes both stigma and the state's ability to act fast. Now let's see the background of this motion, ladies and gentlemen. In today's debate, the opposition believes that what we call victimless crimes are not truly free from harm. They may not involve a clear third-party victim, but they still lead to widespread indirect damage. These acts often erode social norms, exploit vulnerable people, and create long-term health, financial, emotional consequences. Victimless crimes include drug consumption, prostitution, and gambling, activities that can spiral into addiction, mental illness, and even organized crime. Many people involved are not fully informed or free from corruption. Therefore, these crimes, although appearing private, affect public well-being and demand state intervention, not leniency. Victimless crime refers to illegal activities where the people involved consent and no one is directly harmed. Example, gambling, sex work, and drug use. The government proposes decriminalization, meaning these acts would no longer be criminal offenses, but the decriminalization doesn't mean safe or harmless consent. Does not erase further consequences. We, as the opposition, believe that legally sends a moral and social message. If the law no longer views this as wrong, society becomes more likely to accept harmful behaviors as normal. The government side may argue for regulation after the decriminalization, but we must be clear about what we're debating. This motion isn't about better policies, it's about removing criminal penalties entirely. Without criminal law, the state loses a strong tool to prevent harmful behavior. Rehab and counseling can become optional rather than enforceable. Decriminalization limits the state's power to intervene early, especially in crises like addiction or trafficking. In the current legal system, these acts are are criminalized not just to punish, but to protect the status quo, allows the state to intervene, educate, or rehabilitate. Criminalization is often the trigger for help. For example, someone caught with drugs can be sent to mandatory rehab or therapy. Without legal consequences, many would never receive help. Thus, criminalization, when applied with violence, actually serves a gateway to protection, not merely punishment. The people involved in a victim's crimes are not always fully free or informed. Many are in vulnerable condition driven by poverty, trauma, or social pressure. Their consent is often not fully voluntary. For evidence in sex work, many are trafficked or exploited. Drug use often starts young and escalates due to peer pressure or trauma. Gambling addiction is mental illness, not a choice. So the push to decriminalize is rising in the name of freedom, but the danger is immediate and growing. Once decriminalized, this act becomes normalized and harder to reverse easily. In places where prostitution or gambling was decriminalized, participation rose, especially among the poor. Once accepted, these activities are hard to regulate again. Now is the moment to reinforce public values, not to open the door to social decline. What's the worst that could happen if we support this motion? We create a society where harmful behaviors become mainstream and intervention becomes too late or too weak. For evidence, a rise in drug dependency and overdose, expansion of human trafficking mass as illegal sex work, and families destroyed by gambling debts. This criminalization risks turning private choices into public crises that are harder and more expensive to fix. Then victimless crimes are not truly victimless. They affect individuals, families, and communities in complex ways. This criminalization removes the law's power to deter, protect, and intervene early. From drug overdose to exploitation in sex work, evidence shows that without legal oversight, harm increases. That's why we at the opposition firmly believe the law must remain in place, not to punish freedom, but to protect people from irreversible harm. Thank you.